Stalking is an unsettling crime that involves unwanted attention, harassment, repetitive and potentially dangerous acts in pursuit of another individual. There are 5 subtypes of stalking: the rejected, the intimacy seeker, the incompetent, the resentful, and finally the predator. Around 2 to 13% of males and 8 to 32% of females are victims of stalking at some point in their lives, and the majority are stalked by someone they know. But for people constantly in the spotlight, that's not always the case. Tonight on the Front Room podcast, we'll be discussing celebrity stalkers. Miley Cyrus has been stalked by 2 different men in her life. The first was Mark McLeod, a 53-year-old man from Georgia who was infatuated with the 16-year-old Miley after first seeing her in concert in Orlando.
16?
I know, definitely. Oh, I don't want to use the word pedo, but...
but we're going to be using it repeatedly.
He then stalked her on the set of her movie The Last Song, trying to figure out where she was and gain access to her. He was quickly arrested but shortly released after only 1 day in jail due to overcrowding. I know, American justice system, like.
Stalking laws are so lenient as well still.
I think, see, this is whenever she was 16 though as well, so I think they've got a wee bit more harsh now.
Yeah.
He was never made as well to have a psychological examination, but he probably should have, because he insisted that he was secretly engaged to the young star and that her dad, Billy Ray Cyrus, approved of their relationship. He also said, "Our eyes met at her concert and we both knew." He also admitted that he watched her on the balcony of her hotel. When he was arrested the second time for trying to gain access to Miley again, he was out of control, screaming obscenities and trying to headbutt the officers. He also then told the police that he had sent Miley hundreds of letters and received her responses in secret messages from her TV show Hannah Montana, which to anyone comes across as delusional.
That's brilliant. So this, what, 50-what-year-old?
53.
Was watching Hannah Montana and thinking it was personal message
that's
to him.
That's very odd as well, to be watching a kids show like that on the Disney Channel too. When he was brought to court the second time, he pled guilty to obstruction and disorderly conduct charges, but the stalking charge for some reason was tossed out by the jury. However, if he tries to contact Miley Cyrus or her family again, he will be jailed on aggressive stalking charges. A 42-year-old David Rumsey is the second man to stalk Miley. He obsessively tweeted over 1,400 times, mostly to her. He had never met her or spoken to her in real life. He attended the iHeart Music Festival in Las Vegas, where Miley was due to perform. The week before this, however, he had tweeted so many disturbing things, such as he's sorry for hurting her and that he blames Donald Trump. He then insinuated that when they meet, they'll be able to party with Michael Jackson, Prince and Tupac. That's pretty crazy though, because the fact that he's saying that he's sorry for hurting her, and then he's saying that they're going to party with Michael Jackson, Prince and Tupac.
So he's implying that he's already hurt her?
Yeah, but seems like some sort of premonition for like killing her or something. I don't want to use those words exactly because it's never been confirmed or anything, but to say that they're going to be partying with 3 famous people who are dead.
A-listers.
Yeah. Luckily, Miley's security though were on top of the situation and had passed out pictures of Rumsey. So when he was spotted, he was quickly detained by them. He then allegedly told them that it was his life's mission to impregnate Miley.
As we'll get into this, so many of these stalkers claim like life mission things.
He was then arrested and jailed in Clark County on a felony charge of making threats.
I don't know what a felony is, because I would have thought making threats wouldn't be a felony.
Yeah, but I suppose it's making threats on her life. It's not like...
Threatening to duff her up.
Yeah. Well, I suppose he was duffing her up in that sense, and he wanted to impregnate her.
That is mental that she has these 2 different stalkers and they're both over the age of 40, all based out of her kids' TV show.
No, well, actually, the second one, he was just more... It doesn't actually say that he was obsessed with Hannah Montana or anything like the first one, but she's still pretty young for... Let's say, what age is she now? 27?
Yeah, about our age. Yeah,
she's around our age, yeah. Even that, a 42-year-old, and this was a few years ago,
yeah.
So she was definitely way younger than him. But they both seem to have mental health problems, definitely.
Well, you could say that anybody's stalking. See, this is the thing, as it goes on, pretty much everybody on this list you could definitely say has mental health issues, but to what extent is that excusable for stalking?
To be fair though, because you have to think about it like that, because if they're going after celebrities who they do not know in person, there has to be some sort of delusion there.
Yeah.
It can't just be like that they know them and that they're stalking them for some sort of reason, that they've done them harm or wronged them in some way, and they feel wronged, anything like that there.
I wish I'd written it down. It's literally called something like celebrity obsessive disorder. It actually is a term. None
of these cases as well as the ones that I'm going to be speaking about have mentioned celebrity obsessive disorder, but they have all mentioned some sort of mental health issue, like whether it's like schizophrenia or depression, even something like that there, which I don't really know if that's an excuse for stalking, but there's some sort of personality disorder with a lot of them.
Yeah.
But we will see as we go along what we think of the rest of them.
Yep. So my first one here is Justin Bieber.
I actually never knew he had a stalker at all.
I'm shocked this isn't more of a prominently known case. Okay, so Mark Stacke and Tanner Ruan. I'm not sure about those pronunciations, but we'll just go with them for the rest of it.
Okay.
Right, they were aged 41 and 23, respectively. They were an uncle-nephew duo from New Mexico. While some uncles and nephews plan fishing trips or a night out at the pub, in 2012, Mark and Tanner had a different plan: to kidnap Justin Bieber and sell his testicles.
Jesus Christ.
So,
I have no words for this. I've never heard of this.
Uncle Mark had befriended a man named Dana Martin while he was in prison. Martin was serving a life sentence for the rape and murder of a 15-year-old back in 2000. Somehow, while in jail, Martin developed an obsession with the teenage heartthrob Justin Bieber, catching a full-blown case of Bieber fever.
The 15-year-old that he raped, did you say?
Raped and murdered.
Raped and murdered? Was it a man? Or
No,
was
it was
a
a
boy?
15-year-old girl he raped and murdered, yeah. He became furious when Justin Bieber wouldn't reply to one of his many letters, and even went as far as tattooing Bieb's face on his leg. You know, you hear about all these people in prison and how tough prison is.
Yeah.
How would the other prisoners not ripping him apart for having a tattoo of Justin Bieber on his leg?
He must have just came across as crazy.
He must have came across as so tough that you wouldn't slag him off for having a teenage heartthrob on his thigh.
I've seen a lot of Justin Bieber tattoos as well, like on the internet and like on meme pages, and I'm just wondering now if any of them happen to be his.
This tattoo took 15 hours to complete, and he's hilariously quoted as saying, "You need to have a shaved Bieber. Believe me, you do not want to have a hairy Bieber." Child rapist and murderer.
Jesus Christ, that's sick, like.
So still, after no replies from Justin Bieber with a tattoo and numerous letters, Martin decided Bieber must die. And this is where uncle and nephew duo Mark and Tanner come into play. So Dana Martin convinced his old prison friend Mark, the uncle, who'd recently been released, to kill Justin. And in exchange, he would give him the amazing sum of how much?
How much?
$5,000, which he agreed to. How would he get that money? How would he raise $5,000? By getting Mark to castrate Bieber after murdering him, selling each testicle for $2,500.
He could get a lot more for that.
Well, the uncle decided it was a job for two men, so he enlisted the help of his nephew Tanner. Martin communicated with the duo via prison phone calls, and in later released audio clips, very cleverly substituted the name Justin Bieber for Pitbull, telling Tanner, Mark's going to kill the Pitbull and you're going to castrate them. He really got around the prison system, didn't he?
So how long was he in prison for?
The child murderer was in prison for life. I don't know how long the uncle was in prison for. But he's released by this point and only communicating by phone calls.
At least they had the sense, though. Well, not at least, but I suppose they did have the sense to change the name.
Yeah, from Justin Bieber to Pitbull. But I will say, though, as funny and ridiculous as some of the details are, really grim detail is while given killing techniques for how to murder Justin Bieber, he described in detail the choking technique he used on his 15-year-old victim. So clearly had no remorse. He was telling, when you get fucking Bieber, do this. And he described in detail how he killed his victim.
That is horrendous. That's how did they find out about this? How did they find out about them wanting to kill Justin Bieber?
It's coming up. Tanner went about compiling documents. He compiled info on Justin Bieber, Justin Bieber's bodyguard, and Justin Bieber's family members, and his whereabouts in relation to the tour Justin Bieber was doing at the time. So the date was set, November 28th, 2012. Mark and Tanner, the uncle and nephew, were to kidnap Justin Bieber after his concert in New York's Madison Square Garden to execute the plan. But, as you were asking, what foiled the plan? Dana Martin, the murderer who set up the whole thing, told the police about the entire thing. He ratted them both out. The police managed to arrest the duo, keeping Mark in custody for breaching the terms of his parole, but releasing Tanner, the younger one. However, when they got the full details in police interviews, they rearrested Tanner the following day, and they found incriminating evidence in the boot of his car, which included things like duct tape and a pair of pliers, which is supposedly what they were going to use to castrate Bieber.
I honestly don't have any words for this. This is so shocking to me.
So they were sentenced for conspiracy to murder, though Tanner was released.
Sorry, but I'm just wondering, is it just this person's word against them? Like, he just went and confessed this, along with, I suppose, the duct tape and pliers, but can that really be used?
As far as I can tell, the uncle and nephew have also admitted to it. they've admitted to being part of this plan. But here, I wanted to get this to my final thoughts. I clearly think that this guy, Dana Martin, the child murderer, is manipulating two incredibly unintelligent people. Maybe even people with learning difficulties, I would go as far as to say.
But why? What would his motive be?
He is an obsessed person who enjoys having control over people. So he used to share a jail cell with the uncle.
Oh,
I think he
okay.
wants him back in prison.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from.
That's completely unfounded, but I'm just going to throw that
it
theory
is
out there.
unfounded,
But anyway,
yeah.
the nephew got out in a few years. However, earlier this year, he found himself back in prison for meth possession, and that's the only recent update I can find on him.
I'm surprised that I've never heard of this story before.
You think it's almost so ridiculous. I think it delves into they wanted to kill him and cut off his balls. That sounds funny, but in reality,
It sounds like a meme, or like not a meme, but no, like something you would see on Reddit, like a made up story about it.
And it's so ridiculous. It goes into the comedy thing, but it's actually a horrible plan.
That is horrible. It's scary as well. Like because whenever there's famous people, this is something I want to talk about later. Actually, after we've talked about all these celebrities, but the fact that celebrities are so much in the limelight, so many people could be potentially targeting.
Yeah.
Like for no reason at all, but you wouldn't even and they would have no idea as well.
It's amazing the personal connection people seem to think that they make with celebrities they've only ever seen on TV.
I know, it is delusions.
Yeah.
But I can understand it because whenever, especially like being a teenager and stuff, like a teenage girl, and seeing like celebrity men on TV, like singers and stuff, and then fancying them.
Would you really have had an I don't think I ever.
No, I wouldn't say obsession, but I would definitely have like crushes, I suppose, on like celebrities, and would have been like, oh, I love them. Even now, like, well, not now, but I would just be like, oh, I love all these people.
Yeah.
I have no idea who they are. You know what I'm like.
Yeah, you wanted me to kidnap Ben Shapiro last week.
Jesus Christ. Catherine Zeta-Jones was stalked by a woman, Donette Knight, in July of 2005. She was apparently obsessed with Catherine Zeta-Jones' husband at the time, Michael Douglas. She viciously threatened her life through letters and phone calls. Knight said that she would slice her up like meat on a bone and feed her to the dogs, amongst other brutal things. When she was finally arrested, Jones wrote an impassioned statement that was read to the court that said, "This woman is not insane. She is simply evil. This person was very articulate in how she was going to kill me. You have profoundly affected me in how I conduct my life from the first time I was aware of this nightmare. Your actions will be with me for the rest of my life, how I will be constantly observing and looking over my shoulder."
Yeah, I actually looked into this one a wee bit as well because I was going to do these two as a double whammy. Mm-hmm. But again, as I was saying earlier, I was sort of laughing at the details of some of that Justin Bieber case because it's so ridiculous. Then you get into a really disgusting detail about like a murderer who's clearly like reliving a past murder to give advice to others. And again, you could almost laugh at these because it's like celebrities and these crazy people who are obsessed with them. But imagine the actual level of paranoia if you have a high level stalker who's repeatedly breached your privacy. You know what I mean? Like, at first it seems ridiculous and almost funny, but the more you think about it, she was saying it had a profound effect on her.
Yeah.
It would if it was high level stalking.
Definitely. I read as well that Michael Douglas said that she was constantly like literally shaking with fear and nearly fainting all the time because she was getting these phone calls and letters like literally threatening her life.
Yeah.
Like imagine someone constantly for, I don't know how long it was, but I'm sure it was a long time. Like even if it was a short amount of time, threatening your life like that when they have children and stuff as well in their homes. Like I read as well that she had to actually get her children to go over and live with Michael Douglas in, I think it was Spain for a while she was like filming somewhere in Europe because she was so afraid of her constantly following her anywhere and harming her whole family. And she actually did get in contact with her as well while she was in Amsterdam. Like I don't know how she got access to her phone numbers like in these different countries, but she somehow phoned her while she was in Amsterdam, started threatening her again.
And you do think of a stalker as like a crazy person, but they clearly have the ability to gather some amount of information.
Yeah, this case especially like makes me think of the way there's certain people on the internet now, like on social media, the way they are constantly targeting like influencers and celebrities and who are threatening their lives like that. Like this is obviously like if this woman Donette Knight had had social media back then, she definitely would have been threatening her through that. But a lot of police and authorities and stuff don't take social media threats as seriously, whereas it is quite clear that it can lead up to something so serious like this.
See, I have to admit, I'm a wee bit guilty of not taking things like that seriously. Did you ever get when celebrities or politicians or any prominent person now talks about, I've received death threats over this?
Yeah.
See, whenever I hear like I received death threats on Twitter, in my head I do completely dismiss it.
Yeah.
But all it takes is the wrong person to be behind those death threats, and it actually is very serious.
I know, definitely. Because it's all not well and good, but like there's definitely trolls out there as well. But if there is obviously a lot of people with mental health problems who do get obsessions with celebrities who could easily take it to another level.
Yeah. Well, my second one here is actually a pretty sad one. But David Letterman. So for several years, starting in 1988, David Letterman was stalked by Margaret Mary Ray, better known as Peggy. Peggy was a popular student in her school days and was an honour student, went to train as a student nurse at university. However, she dropped out to get married, quickly having 4 children with her new husband. Unfortunately, still in her early 20s, Peggy began showing signs of schizophrenia, just as 2 of her brothers had done, and as it was later revealed, her father also showed signs of. At age 30, Peggy got divorced and went into further mental decline, losing custody of her 4 kids. At this point, she began to live a drifter lifestyle, often disappearing for months at a time. This all led to her, at the age of 38, making national news when she was arrested upon driving David Letterman's stolen car with her 3-year-old son in the back seat. For the next several years, she was arrested on 8 separate occasions for trespassing on Letterman's property. She was eventually sentenced to 34 months in jail/psychiatric hospitals for the stalking, but it should be noted that Letterman frequently opted not to press charges against her. I thought that was pretty interesting, because, and not to downplay anybody who is terrified of their stalker, but clearly he was aware that this is a woman with severe mental health issues, and he could have washed his hands of it, and you could say quite rightly, this woman stalking him and is at his house, and it's clearly obviously freaking him out to some extent, but I do find it almost admirable that he was aware to the extent of her issues that he chose not to press charges against her, because he would know, maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but he would know they won't give her the help she needs, they'll lock her away for this, whereas that's not what she needs.
Yeah, I was literally about to say, like, mental health services, especially
this late 80s, early 90s,
they were not up to standard at all. They're not even to this day, never mind back then.
That is completely true in her case, and as well, though Letterman would often make jokes about having a stalker on his nightly talk show, he never named Peggy, stating that he had a great compassion for her and he wasn't comfortable with the humanity of pressing charges against her.
That's really nice. I love that. I'm so happy you told me that.
What you were saying was right, though, about the mental health services at that time, especially because after her release from her sentence, where she went to jail/the psychiatric hospital the first time, Peggy insisted that she no longer had mental health issues and decided that she was going to stop taking her prescribed medication. At that point, she turned her focus to stalking astronaut Story Musgrave for several years, and for that she was again imprisoned for trespassing. She was then sent to and again released from another psychiatric hospital. Once more, she decided she was going to stop taking her meds after she got released, and shortly after that committed suicide. So clearly this woman who stalked numerous people and had to be prescribed medication on numerous occasions was well, here's the thing. You're an adult, you're allowed to stop taking your medication, aren't you?
Yeah, but surely if someone is schizophrenic and is taking like antipsychotic medication, they should have some sort of social worker and someone who has to enforce them to take things like that.
And who's displayed...
Because they are obviously a person who's in need.
Yeah, they've displayed erotic behaviour for over a decade. They've stalked 2 different celebrities and left their... Well, I don't know if they're saying leave their families for her, because I don't know if she left or the divorce was sort of a mutual thing. But clearly, both her brothers had schizophrenia, or dad had schizophrenia, so it ran in the family quite clearly. Yeah. So would that person really be deemed capable of looking after themselves these days? I think probably not.
No,
you like to think not.
Yeah, I know. They definitely need help. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who would say, but it's not anyone random's responsibility.
Yeah,
it's their responsibility or their family's responsibility.
I thought it was hard.
This is not what I think, by the way.
No, yeah,
it's definitely not what I think.
But when I was looking this up, I don't know if it's an error in terms of, like, because it's a 25-year-old article, it somehow changed, or if it was just poorly phrased. But she committed suicide not long after her release from hospital for stalking the astronaut. But the New York Times article at the time says, "The woman who stalked Letterman is a suicide." That was the headline I found, which I don't know if that is a complete blunder or if it's some weird problem with, like, internet articles from 25 years ago changing.
I don't know, because even like the articles that I've been looking at haven't been too old, but I've seen numerous spelling mistakes as well.
Yeah, I was trying to rephrase that, so I was like, the woman who stalked Letterman is a suicide, but these days you wouldn't say, oh, that person, they were a suicide.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, ends in suicide.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all to me.
The last thing David Letterman...
I suppose that we're just nitpicking.
Yeah. But the last thing he ever said about her, when asked about her suicide, he said, "It's a sad ending to a confused life."
Oh, that's very sad. That's a really sad story.
And fair enough, if any high-profile person who's stalked by somebody, like, I don't think there's a single problem with completely washing your hands of them. But it is interesting that he clearly didn't, in a way, and that even after she died, still expressed some empathy with her.
Yeah, he definitely seems like a really empathetic person. So my next case of stalking is actually a short one, and it's about Rihanna. There was a man called Eduardo Leon who was 27, and he apparently was in love with Rihanna, and he hopped her fence off her LA home and broke into her house, where he lay on her bed and charged his phone and unpacked a bag that he brought with him.
No way.
Yeah, so nothing too sinister.
Well.
But the house was empty at the time as well.
Okay.
Okay, it's still...
Yeah.
Yeah. But, and he stayed in her bed for 12 hours where her assistant found him. And then she phoned the police. But then whenever the police came to arrest him, he told them that he was there to have sex with Rihanna. So he was charged with stalking, burglary and vandalism, and he got probation for 5 years and ordered to stay away from Rihanna for 10 years, and he can't use social media while on probation at all for those 5 years. But I couldn't find anything that Rihanna had said about it.
She never spoke publicly about it at all, no?
I couldn't find anything from my research. Rihanna is quite a private person,
yeah.
I suppose, anyway, and I really hear her speaking up about things. But I was thinking about this one, and I'm not really sure. Like, I suppose it is classified as stalking, but it's not really, like, he's not physically stalking her, harassing her.
But just breaking into somebody's house is a level of harassment, isn't it? The knowledge that somebody's able to get into your house.
It is harassment, definitely. And the fact that he said that he was there to have sex with her, maybe it's just because, in contrast to the rest of the cases that I've looked at, this is nothing really compared to those, because he wasn't, like, physically contacting her all the time.
I always remember the one time I was ever in court, the judge in a different fucking thing ordered somebody to no longer use social media. It's interesting that judges have the power to do that to people now.
I know, but social media definitely would damage your case in some sort of way. Like, you could write a status and they could use that against you, or you could share information about someone or your case or something that could be used against you. So there's just not enough laws on social media, like, because no one thinks that there should be laws yet.
Even I have to admit, deep down, I have that sort of dismissive attitude. As I was saying earlier, I have a real dismissive attitude to it sometimes.
I think it is really a problem. I think social media definitely is going to be a problem with the legal system.
Yeah. My next one's going back a few years here, right? It's Conan O'Brien. So it's another talk show host like David Letterman, which got me thinking. Talk show hosts in America anyway, not so much here, but talk shows in America are on every single night at the same time. I think maybe that makes people make these connections with them, so like they're there in your house every night, and they sort of, maybe lonely people, maybe people with mental health issues to that extent,
yeah, they would definitely feel some sort of connection with them.
Feel a connection to them, and feel like, well, you're always here for me.
Yeah,
maybe I'm oversimplifying it.
No, I understand definitely. Like, it's like soothing in a way.
Yeah, and a consistent presence in their life. But anyway, so Conan was bizarrely stalked by a priest, Father David Ajmian. They had attended Harvard together, where Conan's roommate was also a priest, though it's unclear if Conan and David ever crossed paths at the time. Entirely possible, though, because they only graduated 2 years apart, although thousands of people go to Harvard. It could be that this priest remembered him from that long ago and always kept tabs on him and became interested in how famous he became.
Or also that maybe he just happened to remember him from uni whenever he seen him, whenever he got famous, and then...
Yes, or possible, as I was reading about this priest, I'll get into the case more in a minute here, but maybe some jealousy, because he was said to be a very sort of eccentric and performative priest during his sermons, and is, I can't remember if it was one of the people that regularly went to his sermons or a woman who volunteered at the chapel, but they were saying that he was notoriously the most funny, most outgoing priest that they'd ever had, and that he'd privately mentioned before that he wanted to be an entertainer.
Yeah, so possibly could be a wee bit of jealousy then.
So David wrote numerous letters to the Conan O'Brien show. Eventually he started signing off as your priest stalker. Despite multiple warnings to stop, he kept sending letters signed off as your priest stalker. He was living in Boston, and he once flew out to New York for a filming of the Conan O'Brien show, but he was declined a spot in the audience. Whenever me and Magumi at Boylberg went to New York, see, to get into the audience for those talk shows, it really is just potluck. You turn up and they go, do you want to be in it? Like, you go to the studio, literally, and they go, do you want to be in it? And you go, yes or no. So he's turned up and he just hasn't got picked, and he didn't take it well, of course. He wrote another letter at that point saying that he went to the show in the dimming hope that you might finally acknowledge me. And then he wrote a follow-up letter to that asking, is this the way you treat your most dangerous fans, with 3 question marks? You owe me big time, pal. Very Stan from Eminem vibes, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Dangerous as well.
I know.
Calling himself dangerous.
He's already openly calling himself
sounds
dangerous.
Like a bit of an attention seeker.
Yeah, big time. And all the other priests in the sanctuary,
clergy, was it called clergy?
they said they had no idea about his obsession with Conan O'Brien. He never expressed it to them, and he never showed any signs.
But you know, priests covering things up all the time.
Oh, cheeky. David then went on to write another letter referencing an assassination attempt before travelling to New York City again, this time trying to forcefully enter the studio. He was stopped and arrested. He was eventually deemed psychologically fit to stand trial, but he went missing before the trial briefly. He was found again, deemed fit again, and all he was made to do was, after pleading guilty to stalking, was pay a $95 court charge, and he had to sign a 2-year agreement restraining order banning him from contacting Conan, which I think is so flimsy.
I do. I agree, because but with someone with that obsession, and that it's so obvious, and that he's pleading guilty as well.
Yeah.
Surely they have the power to do that to someone else.
I couldn't even find more details on it, but at some point during his letter writing saga, he also managed to in person meet Conan O'Brien's parents. Not obviously outing himself as a stalker, but he managed to meet his parents, sent all these threatening letters, and all he gets is a $95 charge and a restraining order for 2 years, which he could break at any time. Now, I know they'll get in serious trouble if he does break it, but he can still break it any time he wants. Like.
Yeah, like he could do it, and Conan O'Brien wouldn't even know that he's broke it, like if he got that close to him, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. The fellow priest believed that he could continue to be a good priest, stating that they were shocked that this had happened, but he was arrested again a few years...
Sorry, wait. He was still able to be a priest after this as well?
Well, he was suspended after this incident, right? He didn't have his clergy hood taken away. I think that's the right word. Completely making that up. But he was arrested again a few years later for harassing a Boston TV journalist. With that, and having been suspended for the Conan O'Brien thing, he was completely stripped of his priesthood, and he's now never allowed to be a priest again. I went on a wee bit of a sleuthing.
What does that mean?
Online looking up people.
Okay.
And I found his up-to-date LinkedIn page. In recent years...
you love doing this, don't you?
Well, there wasn't too much on it. It mentioned that he went to Harvard, and it mentioned that he'd been a priest. But in recent years, all I could find from 2016-17 onwards was he'd volunteered to record audiobooks for the visually impaired, and he worked as a mentor at Cambridge University. So you'd like to think he's got his life back on track.
Yeah, definitely. People are definitely capable of change and redemption and stuff.
I don't even know I'll keep this in, because it's kind of a horrible thing to say. But seeing the photos of him, I looked up, he looks fucking deranged. Like,
does he?
Yeah.
yeah. I don't think although a lot of things we've said today have been the best. I don't know, I feel like a lot of priests look deranged too.
Yeah.
Coming from a Catholic background.
Yeah.
Paula Abdul was a judge on American Idol, and she was relentlessly stalked by a woman named Paula Goodspeed. Paula Goodspeed had been obsessed with Paula Abdul for years, claiming that when she was younger, she constantly drew life-size portraits of Abdul, and her first ever painting of the kid was of her as well. She eventually got on to American Idol, where she knew Paula Abdul was a judge. So while she was waiting to get on to her actual audition on American Idol, she was apparently just consistently talking about Paula Abdul and really, really excited to get onto the stage to meet her. So when she finally got on to her audition, she apparently came on wearing a long pink skirt, a crop top, pink high-heeled boots, a pink scarf in her hair, and pink and green rubber bands on her braces. Goodspeed, who said she was also known for being a fashion genius, was compared to Abdul by another judge, Simon Cowell. He said, "There's a similarity here, more than just the name." And Abdul said, "I see it definitely." And Goodspeed said, "Really? I figure that's a compliment because you're beautiful." Obviously, to me, it sounds like Simon Cowell is taking the piss.
Yeah. I love how they get these mentally unstable, well, not so much now, but in the past, you used to always get these mentally unstable people on the competition shows to laugh at them, and then all of a sudden, it's supposed to be a big shock once one of them acts out.
Oh, wait until you even hear this is horrible. She sang a song, she sang a version of Proud Mary, and apparently it was tone deaf. And
well, that's their opinion. Maybe I liked it.
Yeah, no. Apparently they completely rejected her off-key rendition of it.
Yeah, and they've built up her hopes, obviously, by the producers and in the audition stage, and told her, like, you'll get to perform in front of her.
Yes, because this was her third audition as well, around to the judges stage. So Abdul said that she was speechless straight after the audition, adding, "That's not a great thing," which is horrible. I don't know. And then Randy Jackson as well, who was a judge, said, "That was terrible. What was that?" Then Simon Cowell attacked Goodspeed's braces, saying, "I don't think any artist on earth can sing with that much metal in your mouth anyway. You have so much metal in your mouth. That's like a bridge."
He's so funny, Simon Cowell, wasn't he? When he's so brilliant. Do you ever see his face now?
Terrible.
He's an absolute disaster.
He is. He always has been a disaster. I don't know how people ever liked him in the first place.
Yeah.
There was maybe a few years, like not this year, but maybe within the past 5 years or something on the X Factor, where he sort of calmed down once he had his kid and stuff.
Really?
And he was sort of had some sort of redeemable qualities, but looking back on his whole past,
Yeah.
he was like Tyra Banks. He was absolutely
Yeah.
atrocious.
One of many people whose whole reputation is built off other people telling you he's funny. The way you should hear what he says. But see, when you actually hear it yourself, it was always like, what?
It's because he's so controversial and people are afraid of him criticising them, so that's why they lick up his hole.
Yeah.
Because they don't want him to criticise them. Anyway, so after that, she was obviously devastated, but she was still really, really obsessed with Paula Abdul. She loved this woman. She absolutely idolised her. And she knew where she lived. She constantly drove to her house and knocked on her door and stuff like that.
I'm on her side. This is terrible.
I know it is absolutely horrible. And she also had like a personalised license plate for her and had like pictures of her hanging up on her rear view mirror.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But after this audition as well, I think her mental health definitely took a turn for the worst. But she would still drive to her house and just like try to contact her, try to like write letters to her and get her to phone her on her new mobile number and stuff like that there. But at the end of the day, she ended up taking her own life outside her house.
Fuck, I'd never heard about that.
In her car. Paula Abdul was actually away from her house at the time. Apparently she had tried this a few months before to take her own life.
Yeah.
But she was obviously found and rescued and stuff, but then she went back again and committed suicide by overdose outside of her house.
See, I think I have really unfair mixed feelings about this. In my head, maybe I'm victim blaming Paul Abdul, not for the suicide, but it's like just compare the David Letterman case where he like chose not to press charges and express concern over the person.
I don't think she wasn't ever pressing charges against her. And afterwards she did. Well, actually, do you know what? I don't know. It doesn't ever mention her pressing charges.
Yeah.
But afterwards she did come out and speak about it and say that it's really affected her and like she feels horrible obviously for it, and she feels like that Simon Cowell and the judges and the whole cast of American Idol invite these people on.
Oh, well, fair play for doing that then. Yeah,
she literally said she's like, "This is our house. We're inviting these people in for cocktails," and then Simon Cowell's. Obviously not. She's being like hypothetical.
No, I know, but I don't like that.
No. And then Simon Cowell's being like, "What are you doing here in our house?" Basically, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because that's what he does to a lot of contestants, obviously, who try to make fools of.
Yeah, the whole thing was set up. The audition thing is supposed to be how many idiots can insult, but also while simultaneously building them up.
So after this failed audition, Goodspeed actually vowed, saying, "It's not over and I'm not going to stop singing." 5 months after her audition, she wrote on her MySpace page that it's very hard reading such awful things being written about yourself. Not like a lot of people would understand what it's like having so many haters just because I made the mistake of trying out for a singing competition before I was even ready vocally, emotionally and physically. I have to believe there's something good about me, Goodspeed wrote. This case particularly, I think that Paula Goodspeed falls into two subtypes of stalking, the rejected and the intimacy seeker.
Definitely the rejected, you can see, yeah.
Yeah, I think the rejected because once she went on American Idol, Paula Abdul, who was her
idol
icon, yeah, and she was infatuated with her as well. After receiving sort of snide comments from her and not getting the praise that she wanted, she would definitely be feeling rejected after that. And the intimacy seeker because she had been craving that intimacy from her well before she even went on American Idol.
Definitely.
I do think as well a lot of celebrity cases of stalking, the majority of them are the intimacy seekers. They're all delusional and have mental health problems because these are people that they don't know and they haven't met in real life, and they have a feeling of connection and a feeling that they want to be intimate with these stars.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say actually that most of the celebrity stalkers would fall into the intimacy seeker. It's almost as if all of them are lacking something in their lives.
Yeah, I definitely do. I think that whenever it comes to therapy for this kind of subtype of stalking that it seems so simple, but a lot of them have been given therapy where they have to just get other hobbies in their lives.
Yeah. Oh, really?
It sounds so simple, doesn't it?
Yeah, I
But
would
a
have
lot
thought
of
that.
them are lacking that sort of thing.
Now, that is interesting. Not that it's so much a stalker case. Remember Bjork's person who recorded all the videos of himself slowly becoming more.
Oh yeah, that's horrible.
It is to think as well. It's sort of easy to say. It's sort of easy to think that these people would be able to, be fixed. But when you're so far detached from reality, you don't realise that you're detached from reality. They genuinely believe that they have connections with these people, which is probably hard for somebody to understand who's never experienced celebrity connections like the way these people think that they have.
Yeah, see, that's what it's hard. I can't really say what I just said. I don't think applies to the people who have severe mental issues. It's just people who are sort of a wee bit off and obsessive. But with people who have like actual mental disorders like schizophrenia or other personality disorders, obviously therapy such as taking up hobbies is not going to work. They need serious mental health help. But
It is very interesting, though, that replacing their obsession with somebody with a hobby for certain people genuinely can improve their...
yeah, yep.
Well, the last one, anyway, that I have here is Steven Spielberg, one I was completely unaware about until I looked up for this episode. In June 1998, Jonathan Norman was jailed for 25 years. He was found guilty of stalking Spielberg, plotting to invade his mansion, planning to hold him and his family hostage, and rape Steven Spielberg.
I actually have heard of this case before, but I had no idea that he was planning to rape him.
So on June 29th, 1997, Norman had drove a rented car up to the gate of Spielberg's home. Unbeknownst to him, Spielberg had actually travelled to Ireland 6 days earlier to film a movie. Security guard at the gate told Norman this, who responded by silently glaring at him for a significant period of time before driving off, which is quite an intimidating thing to do right away. Norm stalked the house for the next few days, and on July 9th, he drove a friend with him up to the house, showed him his day planner, which included a photo of Steven Spielberg's head pasted onto a naked body, and he told his friend that he was going to climb the property wall and rape Steven Spielberg. At 1:25 a.m. on the morning of July 11th, police noticed Norman parked suspiciously outside the house and told him to clear off, basically. He did for 5 whole hours. He came back at around 7 a.m. Police went for him, but he ran off and was eventually found hiding in bushes. He claimed that he was Steven Spielberg's newly adopted son. I think a pretty bold claim to tell the police right away. When brought into the station for questioning, he was asked to give his name, and he said David Spielberg. He's pretty bold in his outrageously false claims, which I respect. He was released after a couple of hours of questioning.
That is shocking.
That evening, he returned to the Spielberg residence. Security guard at the gate again recognised him and called police. The security guard was then watched on as Norman reversed his car into the gates to try to get them to open. The police arrived at this point and once again arrested him. In the boot of Norman's car, they found handcuffs, a box cutter, duct tape, his day planner with the photos, and parking tickets. When asked what he was doing, Norman tried one last lie. He said he had an appointment with Steven Spielberg about a screenplay that involved one man raping another man, and the handcuffs and the tape were just props.
Absolutely delusional. Like.
Norman eventually confessed, adding that he wanted to tie up Steven Spielberg's wife and make her watch while he raped him. So again, the ridiculous details of this make you laugh at first, but then you get the detail where it's like, fuck off.
It doesn't really make you laugh. It's just...
It's so ridiculous.
It's so obscene.
Amongst Norman's documents were writings about pursuing Steven Spielberg to become his gay lover, details about Steven Spielberg's children, wife, sister, ex-wife, and mother. So it was a deeper stalking case than the first thought. It wasn't so much a case of him wanting to break into his house. They found out that he had completely stalked Steven Spielberg and his family for a period of time before this.
He was obsessed.
He'd actually had 2 previous felony charges, which is why he was given the seemingly harsh sentence of 25 years.
I just realised I was picturing Stephen King this whole time.
Yes.
Who's Steven Spielberg?
The director of Jaws.
I can only picture Stephen King for some reason.
We'll end on that note. That's a good way to end it.
Oh, fuck.